I'm Ed Johnson. I used to own a company called Johnson Brothers in Tarzana, and I've been in the rock trade since 1969. I ran into Bob Hunter and Bill Hunter. They were the owners then of Satellite City, selling hot stuff glues. He got referred to me as a wholesale distributor, and it's been a fun adventure selling that product. I feel very strongly that it's a quality product. There's 3 different types of hot stuff. There's a thin one, which has a red label. There's a thick one for gap filling with a yellow label. I guess that's yellow. And a green one, which is specialty. And that one is for larger gaps where you don't want your glue to run or you have a big area you want to fill. They're super solvent in case, like me, occasionally I goof and I glue my fingers together, it takes it off. And there's also the NCF Quick, which is a bond accelerator when you're using a larger quantity or you want your setup of the glue to happen faster. You're in a hurry, or you think you're in a hurry. But anyway, I've set up the way I do it here. I put wax paper on this table so that I don't glue something to the table. And it has a tendency, this wax paper, to not stick. Although enough quantity, spill over, whatever, it'll stick. But the wax paper is easy to get off at your grinder, which you're going to use on the stone anyway. So, also there's the pipettes, which is a little bulb-like thing that sucks the glue up inside your applicator here. And to do that, you take the cap off of the glue, squeeze the bulb, and it'll suck the glue up inside, for you to then press the bulb lightly again to apply the glue where you want it. And I've laid out here 3 different types of gluing situation. This first one is one of treating or cracks or tiny pits in the stones. And the next one is for Super T, and there we'll be doing edges and places where the glue might run. And also for large spaces like this one here, we're going to use the specialty. So we've got 3 different types of glue we're going to use. And when I do one of the rows, I'll go in and use the NCF to set it up, because in some cases I need to turn it over and glue the backside also. And they'll have similar problems. There's lots of different uses for the glue. Here's a stone that, oh yeah, I wanted to mention that. You need to grind off on the exposed areas where you've treated a stone with the glue. If you could get up close enough, you could see that there's some wax paper stuck on here, and there's also a patch of glue that I didn't grind off. I have to use these sometimes to see what I'm doing, and I don't have them on. In any case, that needs to be ground off before it's processed any further. But it's not a tough thing. You're going to use a grinder anyway to work on the stone. The cool thing about the hot stuff is it penetrates deeply. If you've got a larger stone that has a crack in it and it's really nice and you want to save it, you would use hot stuff because it will penetrate very deeply. I'm using it for these porous things. The dinosaur bone that I have here was not as good as I thought it was going to be, so it needs to be treated to hold it together when I'm grinding and putting it in the tumbler to polish it. And this is an opal from Peru that has dendrites in it. It's quite porous and soft, so I want to fix that. And there's a couple of stones here that'll have cracks and small pits. And one really special thing about this product is it polishes with the same techniques you use on your rock, so you don't have to buy something new to have this work, and it remains clear, so it actually disappears. Let's glue some stuff.
All right.
Let's see, we're going to use hot stuff down the major part here, because they're just minor problems. And the way you do this, the way you do this, is you suck some up in there. You can see it going in. You get this tiny little opening there, so you can control what you're doing. And I use the tip to spread it. I don't use my fingers. I'm going to cover the entire surface because this is much softer than I had hoped for, but we can fix that with the glue. Just move on to the different ones here. So it's fairly easy to do. Now this quantity that I'm putting on here will not bond up right away, so I'm interested in the NCF when we get all done with all of them. You can save a little NCF by doing spraying in bulk. I'm not going to do the big one, it just takes a little bit longer than you need to wait. But now we'll move on to this opal here. See, I squeeze a little out when I need it. Now this is an agate here that I'm working on now. I don't know if you can see that very well.
Mm-hmm.
So I covered all of our problems there on the agate. Here's another agate with similar like problems. The material in the center is calcite, so it doesn't work too well as a gemstone, so that's why we're treating that middle part with the glue. And then we've got one here, very hard to see, but there's a crack running about 1/2 inch here across that, and I want to bond that up because I want to save that end for the gemstone I'm making. I put more on there than I really need, but it doesn't hurt anything. And if I keep my fingers away from the glue, I don't get stuck. So then, I'm through with the hot stuff. You squeeze the thing back into your bottle. I can use the same pipette for the other glues. And then one of the things I do is I put the cap back on before I use the NCF. Otherwise I could be setting up my stock here. And that's about all we need. It'll take like 5-10 seconds and you're ready to go. So then we'll move these out of the way. Here's one that was trying to stick. I applied too much glue and it went over the edge. But the wax paper does a pretty good job of taking care of it. Now we'll move on to the row with the Super T. Same thing. This bottle has been used down a little way, so you have to stick your applicator in a little bit further. So here's an agate we're going to do. And we have some deep problems here. This particular agate will, the first cut you make can be pretty rugged, and that's what's happening here. And that's what I'm filling in. And the Super T does a pretty good job of gap filling where the gap isn't too big. I think we'll have to do some of the edge here because this crack comes around the edge of the product. So I start at the high point first. In case it likes to run, it'll go into my crack. Oh, another little technique I use when I'm doing things like this is I put it up near the light, and the light bouncing off is a different angle of light bouncing off of the stone, and you can see all the imperfections that way. Whereas if you look straight on, you see one or two things, but there's 5 or 6 on here that need work. So I use that little technique. So again, we got an edge to work with the Super T gap filler. Get it up here in the light. Sometimes you have to make more than one application of the glue to completely fill in with Super T. That's pretty good. Nice rock. Worth saving. Okay. Here's another fun one. This particular rock had a big pit in these little circular designs here. So we're gonna, we'll treat this surface first. Then we'll fill that little gap in. Yeah, need another touch of glue. Just a little bit. That'll take care of that problem. Again, we squeeze out the glue that's left. Put the cap back on. You like that? Special trick I do. It's called Bounce the Super T. And we'll treat again here. I'll get them all closer so I don't have to use so much. And in 5 to 10 seconds we'll be hard. We'll be able to handle these, grind them, polish them, whatever. Now we got specialty. I'll move these over. I'll get these over where I can work on them a little better. Now these have major gaps. Here's one with huge gaps. We may have to apply 2 applications to the edge there. So we'll open up the green label specialty. Grab some of that in our pipette. And we want to come out here on the edge. Fill in all these little cracks and crevices. This one's going to need a little more glue there to bring it up to the level of the stone. Okay, that one's good. This guy here, I had glued it once before, so I'm adding some more specialty to the edge so it'll match up with the contours of the stone. Now here's our big boy that we're going to treat. When we get to show you the other side, you'll see why I'm going through the trouble, because this stone doesn't look like much from this side. But the other side, and what I'm doing is I'm making a good backing for this to set in a piece of jewelry. We'll do the big gap next. There was a crystal pocket here that I cut into when I trimmed this out that I just filled in. And then these little guys here are what's called pseudomorphs. They form over the top of calcite crystals, and eventually layer after layer they get round. I don't know if you can see that on the camera there. So I want to try to save those. So my estimation is hot stuff glues don't cost anything, they save money. The edges here are a little rugged. It's all kinds of things that happen to rocks while they're still in the ground. So there's those guys. Get our cap, put it on so we don't harden the glue in the bottle. Get our accelerator again. That's all there is to it. For me now, I would take these stones to the grinder and grind the surface flat with the rest of the stone and process it through the grit steps into polish. I use a tumbler to do my finish work because I want to do a couple hundred stones at a time, and it would take a long time to hand cut those stones. So the tumbler kind of speeds up the whole process. This little job right here, just to give you an example of things you can do. This is a piece of opal. This is the top of a wine cork. This screws into the top, and you would take a drop of, on this job I would use Super Tea. And I put a drop in there, set your stone down, press it with your finger, and it'll bond up right away. We're going to do a little job here on this agate. It's got a special shape. I cut stones in freeform. So that way I save the patterns that are there instead of being, lockstep with certain sizes. This is a magnet I'm going to glue on the back. We'll put a little bit of the special tea on there and just set it down. Just for fun, we'll hit it with the accelerator. And so we've got a new thing we can give as gifts or whatever. A sample here of a stone that I treated, and I must not have been wearing my glasses that day because there's two spots on here where hot stuff is still on the surface, and this is after having gone through the coarse grit. So what that tells us is that we got to grind it off, we got to smooth the surface. The glue is resilient to silicon carbide grit, which is very, very sharp, and it's tough. So your bonds are secure when you use this product. It's an industrial quality. Oh, I might tell you about a customer I used to have when I had a wholesale distributorship. The Black Hills Institute of Geological Research came up with a process where they dig up dinosaurs in the Badlands of the Dakotas. And they sent me a picture of the owner, who was 6'2", and he looked like a dwarf next to the dinosaur that they had assembled. And the special thing that he came up with was a lot of the bones were broken into very small pieces, and they could treat it with hot stuff and dig it out complete without having a three-dimensional jigsaw puzzle to put together later. Probably take the rest of their life just to do one dinosaur. And they could do it in a few days once they exposed the bones. And then they would dig out a solid piece. So it was a real money saver for them, time saver. So there's hundreds of applications, things that need to be together, things that have cracks, and things that have pits and large areas to glue up.